All right, welcome everybody. People are going to be rolling in here. I believe the boys at Illegal Curve just got off the air, so we're going to hop on the air and keep the conversation going. Anyone who's hopping over from them to us, we really appreciate that. Love doing this with everybody and starting to see the numbers pile in. We appreciate that. And Ken, I think the first thing I got to do is start this with an apology to our audience because we take this really seriously and we like to give really good analysis to the people and give a reason for people to show up. And before the game we do our predictions of what's going to happen in the game. you know where I'm going with this. And last game I said the Jets were going to win 3-2 and they won 3-2 because I'm good at analysis is what's happening here, right?
Yes you
Tonight, I said there was going to be a 4-3 victory by the Flames, and I was way off. It was a 4-2 victory by the Flames, and I apologize for that. Ken, he's off in a different world. Don't even worry about that, but I take my responsibilities to you, the viewers, seriously. So my humblest of apologies. I will be better going forward. Thank you very much. Kenny, take it away right off. I love to start this with just you giving me your thoughts on what you thought we saw here tonight.
Sure. I mean, interesting game. Obviously, we knew going in that the Flames were going to be the desperate hockey team, and they most certainly were. I know that Paul Maurice didn't necessarily agree with my assessment. I didn't think that the Jets had great legs today, certainly not in terms of generating offensively. Their defensive game, fairly structured. I know my timeline is getting blown up by the Laurent Brossoit commentary, and I know we have a bunch over here as well. This is not a good showing for Laurent Brossoit, that's true, but there's a difference between 3 softies and 1 that should never have gone in and 2 off your teammates' sticks, people. Especially the Giordano slap shot. The way that hit Mason Appleton's stick, it totally changed direction.
Right.
That's not a soft goal. I mean, it's not. And I mean, the Mangiapane goal, it looks really bad in slow motion. But the reason why Brossoit flinches is because the speed goes from being a fastball to a changeup because it hits Poolman's stick. So it looks like a bad goal, and I understand he would have preferred to have stopped it. Yes, I'm not making excuses for the goalie, but that's not a soft goal. A soft goal is if a wrist shot from the boards goes in without hitting someone, and he just whiffs on it. He whiffed completely on the fourth one. So I'm not saying that he played great. I'm not saying that he played at the level that he has been playing at, but a friendly reminder, Laurent Brossoit has been playing at a .920 save percentage level while often playing 1 game a week or 1 game every 10 days. So I understand that some folks are saying, well, if Hellebuyck was in, the Jets would have won. Well, I mean, that's great in theory, but if you want Hellebuyck playing sharp at the playoff time, you need to give him a night off after the team has played a busy week here. So Laurent Brossoit would be the first person to say he needed to play better, but I'm not buying what people are selling when it comes to 3 softies. I'm really not.
Okay, so it's interesting because I thought that exact same thing. That third goal, which really I think is kind of the backbreaker.
Sure.
The puck instantaneously redirects, and you can see the shot, the follow-through. He's trying to shoot upstairs on him, so Brossoit starts lifting up on the shot, and then it instantaneously redirects, bounces off the ice. So it's heading, instead, he's expecting it to go upwards, and instead it goes downwards, bounces off the ice, and goes into the 5-hole that he's left open as he tries to stand up to get the puck. I just thought it was funny because, I'd said on Twitter, I know this looks like a bad goal, but I think it's more like a bad break. And then, you've got people who disagree and, there's potential to that. I'd like to talk to a goaltending coach to get their take on maybe there's something he should have done to avoid that. But it's just funny when you're on there and you're saying, hey, listen, everyone calm down. That wasn't what it looked like. And then he lets in a super softie after that. Then you look ridiculous, right? And so people are like, how about that one? I'm like, yeah, I can't defend that one. I'm not going to defend that one. But I mean, my defense to that was, how many nights this year has Laurent Brossoit played and picked this team up and put them in a position to win and sometimes stolen games for them? Maybe this is the night that they needed to show up with a push in that third period that was beyond what we saw from them this evening.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And again, there have been nights when Laurent Brossoit has played great when the Jets were below average and they just weren't able to generate offense outside of the second period. I thought the third line, the Lowry line, was doing a great job in terms of generation. And then giving up that goal in the opening minute of the third was a bit of a deflator for sure. I think it's fair to say I don't think that the top six generated a whole lot until they pulled their goaltender. But here's the thing: in a game where the Jets didn't have a lot of offensive opportunities, when they pulled the goalie, I mean, if David Riddick doesn't have the great turnaround, Blake Wheeler's got a tap in. But Riddick showed great desperation, got his glove down there, and you saw what happened. Logan Stanley, great goal for sure. I know people are starting to weigh in with that. Rick, the handheld mic is still here, but we've got the mic stand built, and our technical difficulties have been remedied for the most part.
We've minimized them. I wouldn't say they've been remedied. We've still got a lot of gaps in this game. Don't worry about it.
I have the computer up on a 4 or 5 textbooks so that the microphone is out of range, but it's close enough to my face here. So
he's a hand talker. Every once in a while, he'll swat it off the stack of books.
Yeah.
See. It's
when
fun.
When I start pounding my fist on the table here, you won't see this go here. So,
which you've done more and more lately. I love it.
I have. That's
Kenny
true.
is bringing is coming out more and more often. I love it.
Yeah, I don't sit DeMello for a game or two to play Heinola. No, DeMello is one of the Jets' steadiest defensemen for the most part, and I thought that pairing actually was pretty decent tonight again as well. Whether Logan Stanley scored or not, I think that pairing has been solid. Again, this was one of those nights where the Jets looked like a team that was playing their 14th or 15th game. Yeah, 15th game of the month. I mean, so is it surprising they weren't flying around with the greatest of ease? No, of course not. The Lowry line was buzzing. Scheifele's line didn't get a lot generated offensively, I didn't think. And Dubois' line, I think they had a couple of shifts where they were pretty solid. But for the most part, I mean, this was a night where the Flames' top six was better than the Jets. And I mean, we know that Daryl Sutter challenged Johnny Gaudreau to be better. And guess what? Tonight it worked. So that's the way that it goes. So if we thought the Jets were going to run the table in the last 23 games again, I just don't think that is a reasonable assertion. So again, do they need to play better on Monday if they want to win the series? Yes, absolutely they do. But I would say there was no panic at the disco for the Jets. But let's go from there. Sorry, I want to attack this before we bring our friend in here.
Yeah.
Is Dubois underperforming? Guys and gals, Pierre-Luc Dubois has been generating at a nearly a point a game level since he came back from an injury after a quarantine. He's never produced at a point per game level at the National Hockey League level. So, and let's also not forget what Pierre-Luc Dubois actually had to probably point out to members of the media and the fan base. He's the youngest player on the Jets team at 22 years old. Yeah. Younger than Logan Stanley, who is a project player just starting his NHL career. So do I think that Dubois is underperforming? No. Do I think there's another level for him to reach, coffee and TV? Yes. And Dubois is the first person to say that he wants more and will give more. So I think that I wouldn't call him underperforming. I would say he's just scratching the surface in terms of his potential. But yes, he has room to grow. But Dubois is not going to be a 2-point-a-game player like Connor McDavid, but he's going to be a difference maker. And I think he already has been. But he's trying to find his way with a lineup that includes 2 very skilled wingers, and he's sorting himself in.
As ladies and gentlemen who've been watching our other programs on here and have caught our podcast that we've been doing, we've got the ability to bring other people in, and a guy who likes to hang around and razz us in the chat room every once in a while. I said, do it to our faces, and he said, okay, bring me in. So okay, we're gonna bring him in. We're gonna bring in Jeff the Hammer Hamilton is coming in here from the Free Press. Andy, hold on a second here. Before
you're cutting me off already. Okay,
before you
get used to it. Get used to it, Hammer. Get used to it.
Before you get going, I want to figure something out here because I've asked this about. I know a lot of the guys call you Hammer. It's Hammer is your nickname. I've always called you Hammy And you never once ever said to me like, hey, it's Hammer or anything like that. You've always gone with it. Like, which is it?
Dude, it's Hammer time. Get on board. Hammer time. Let's go.
Are you a multi-sport athlete? Do you have, like, when you're playing baseball, you're hammy. When you're playing football, you're hammer time. Like, what's going on here?
Well, great to be on, guys. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad I finally made the cut, first of all. Start right there. Secondly, what's funny? Hammer's never been my nickname. It was Hammy or J-Ham. I have a twin brother, so he was B-Ham, I was J-Ham. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I still haven't figured out what, like, parental level this show is, so I don't know if we're PG, if we're R. Because
family show, buddy, family show.
With it, but I figured we're a family show, so yeah, I'll just stick with, I think it was Huss. I think Huss called me Hammer first, and now it's just I got to live up to that reputation. It's tough.
It's after 12 o'clock, so we will flirt with the line every once in a while, Jeff, and I know you like to push boundaries, and hey, man, I wouldn't have you on if I didn't expect you to be pushing it here or there. But I wanted to get to we were talking about Brossoit before you came on, and I wanted to pitch this idea to both of you, that what we saw is, okay, he has a bad night. We all know he had a bad night. He knows he had a bad night. Big deal. This Winnipeg Jets team has been getting such good goaltending. It's kind of hard to remember the last time you had to be like, yeah, they lost to goaltending here tonight. And that's been, Montreal was dealing with it all the time at the beginning of the year. I remember when Vancouver came in, they lost a game to goaltending against the Jets earlier on. So to me, the concern here is not necessarily that Brossoit had a bad night. Maybe that happens. But I guess what I was looking for was a stronger pushback from the Jets forward group after this happens, because you're a team who has probably had, what would you agree with this, 5 games that your goalies have stolen for you this year? So when you get the first stinker that I can remember from a Jets goaltender, would we not have expected a harder pushback from the Jets than when we got here tonight? Hammer, we'll start with you just because we brought you in new to the show.
So I just want to say something about Laurent Brossoit. Obviously not a great night. I mean, the unfortunate redirection. There were some touches along the way, so he did get fooled by, I think, maybe some misdirection on some shots. Anyways, not making an excuse for him in that regard, but I will say this. In his last 2 games that he started, his goal support has been 2 goals from Mason Appleton and 1 goal from Logan Stanley. Yeah. So the last 2 times he's taken the crease, he hasn't had the 6 players who are dubbed superstars on this team playing forward score for him. So to me, it's unforgivable. Like, I was going to come in here and say, like, I think there should be a rule that if you're in the top 6, like the top 6 guys, we all know who they are. If they don't score a goal in a game, they all have to donate their paychecks to a charity, because it's how do you have that much power up front go dark? And, like, you see a guy like Blake Wheeler, of course he's pissed off at the end of the game. Like, you didn't really.
Was he angry? Was he angry?
Oh yeah. It would last like a minute and a half, and I, probably like 45.
Believe me, I got the shortest answer. Don't worry about it.
Well, no, it's just
that's normal. That's normal.
These guys hate to lose, so I don't. Yes, is it bad goaltending that gets dubbed in this game? Absolutely. But when you can't score a goal and you're relying on Mason Appleton and Logan Stanley to be your goal scorers, which you got to have those in certain nights, it's just the same old story. Laurent Brossoit gets the crease on the second of back-to-back nights. His top lines don't show up, and he gets dubbed a loss. And now his record is down, and he's going to have to, get a victory, get those numbers back up. But, I'm not pinning this one all on him. I felt like he bounced back after some of those goals. There were some, big saves that kept him in. I still don't think the Jets were out of it. They just, couldn't get it done for him, and that's not all on him.
Kenny, I'm interested in your thoughts on this, because maybe it was too much to ask. Maybe it's the timing of it, right? Maybe that bad goal comes in the beginning of the third, and then shortly after you get another bad goal. And again, we've addressed it, and I don't know how you feel about it, Hammy, but that third goal, I think there's an explanation behind it. I think it's a bad bounce. I understand why that goal goes in, as bad as it looks. But letting the next one in really is the kind of thing that lets the air out of the tires. Is it just bad timing, and maybe it's too much to ask the Jets to push back after being deflated like that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just the way that it went. I mean, it's a shot that I think it does go off the defenseman at the blue line, but you can't. It's going wide. So if a puck is going wide and the goalie turns his stick out, it just was a mental lapse for me. I mean, that's what happened. And after that happens, that sort of is one of those air out of the balloon scenarios. I mean, the Jets were, okay for, I would say, 15 minutes of the first period, gave up 2 late ones. Second period, they turned the tables with the early goal, as Jeff mentioned, by the Lowry line once again. And again, I think that the Lowry line was one of the only lines generating any offense when the Jets were outshot and attempted pretty heavily in the first period. But when they had a strong second, and again, Blake Wheeler did say it. I mean, they're one of the best third period teams in the league, and they were outscored 2-0 and didn't really have a great push until the 6-on-4. So, I mean, I would say that it was just one of those nights where they didn't have it. And is that a disappointment? When a team starts its backup, you need to get a push, especially as Jeff mentioned, from the top 6. But that's the one thing. The Jets don't have that layoff that other teams have. And I think that the Flames knew that, and in no offense to Riddick, who's been great against Toronto, but pretty poor against almost everybody else, they know if they're not sharp out of the gate, the Jets could blow them out of the water. So they were on edge, whereas the Jets were kind of just there tonight. I don't think that they were poor. I don't think that they were great. I think they were kind of mediocre overall.
And I don't think you asked that question, like, is it too much to ask the Jets to bounce back from that goal? Like, have we not watched Laurent Brossoit steal games this year? They had more than 12 minutes left in the game, and Blake Wheeler calls them the best. He didn't have the facts, but he called them the best third period team in the NHL. It's not too much to ask to make a push. You have 12 minutes remaining. I think they had a power play after that, and then they're buzzing around the net for the last minute and a half? Like, we talk about this over and over again. Like, why isn't Mark Scheifele taking over that game? Why isn't somebody taking over that game? You have the luxury. This is the Jets' luxury. When and it doesn't matter if you play in the NHL, you can play on other teams, whatever leagues. When you have a very, very skilled team and you're allowed to look up and down your bench, and it's like you have like 6 or 7 guys that could potentially take over a game, that should be a good feeling. And when none of them do it,
well, okay, so here, let me hop in on this, Ken. I'd say it like this: the Winnipeg Jets are that team that has basically been in 1-goal games the entire season. You can't. Tonight, I agree with you. I feel like they were a bit of a no-show. I feel like they took this opportunity to sag and maybe not push their way back into the game like we've seen from them in the past. I'll give you that. To a point that Ken made earlier. I mean, this is a team, it's like, so they lose tonight, and it's like you don't just throw everything out. Like, the fact that they've remained in as many games as they have this year and have lived in that pressure cooker of 1-goal wins, 1-goal losses for as long as they have, I would argue that on a night that things don't go their way in the third period with a bad bounce and then a bad goal by a goaltender, you know what? I do think that they kind of sagged and let the game go tonight. But isn't that normal? Do we not expect that from athletes? Is that not what this Calgary team has been fighting all year? Isn't it an issue with Vancouver? Isn't that a problem that Montreal had? Didn't we see that with Toronto after they had that series with the Jets? I mean, this is human nature to kind of sag a little bit. So I agree with you. And do I agree that Laurent Brossoit probably deserved better after how he's pushed this team this year? Yeah, I totally believe that. But at the same time, I entirely understand a world where the Jets lived in and said, okay, guys, let's take a period off on back-to-back nights where it looks like it's not our night. Ken, do you have anything to?
Yeah, I mean, for me here, I mean, again, this is I'm with Jeff. I think there were moments where there was an opportunity for some of those top-end players to take over the game, and that just wasn't there. But I would also counter with saying, in game 15 and 15th game in 27 days, I think the Jets look tired. They can dispute it all they want. I just don't think that we saw the same jump that we're used to seeing, and I don't think that it's I don't think it's time to go into a deep dive. I think this is kind of more of one of those more of a one-off and an outlier. I think, again, have we found out that it's tough to win Jets won 4 games in a row one time this year. They had a great opportunity to do so again today. I think it looks like a missed opportunity, but I don't think we can underestimate the desperation factor. I mean, literally Calgary has can barely afford 2 to 3 losses for the remainder of the season. And I think that was reflective of the play itself. Calgary carried the play. And, I think you have to give them some credit for doing that based on what we saw yesterday where the Jets dominated the majority of the play. So it's not that abnormal for me. There's been this punch, counter punch in almost every series that we've seen. We didn't see it as often against Vancouver, but again, a lot of that was goaltending in the second game.
I want to bring up this point by Tyler LeBrokery. What happened to the old saying, you don't have to make every stop, but you have to make the timely stops? Tonight, LB didn't make those timely stops. I mean, I totally agree with that. I think that's part of it. But I think we've covered that off. Now, guys, I don't like to make this show about me, clearly. I never brag if I make good predictions or anything like that. But I think too many people.
Is this the first day with the headband, by the way? Are we
so this is Rambo. Rambo. Call him Rambo.
We're live for 20 minutes and 43 seconds, and I feel like that needs to be addressed. If it
it's been addressed. Somebody asked if it was Brett Michaels, guest host tonight. No. Just in the comments.
I saw him in the interview. Interviews, and I was just like, okay, man, sweet. Like,
all right. So people are trashing me in the comments, and I get it.
And rightfully so. Rightfully so.
So what's this? Kenny and Nikki 6. Why? Let's address that question later. I'm gonna say what happened here. I was working out and I was chatting with Hammy in the first period, and he's like, "I got to go work," and I was like, "Yeah, I usually like to try and get a workout. I didn't get one in earlier today, so I did it in front."
This one's even better.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had a workout and I didn't quite get it done. So
what was your workout? Chopping wood with your hands?
So I ran over to the computer to do the post game, and I wasn't paying attention. And I noticed that in the comments, I mean, even like the Jets PR guys were trashing me in there. And I was like, I kind of forgot I had the headband on. And then we finished up, and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to change." And then Kenny was like, "Hey, you think we could go earlier? We could get on earlier." And I was like, "Well, I don't have time now, and I have to get everything ready for the show." So that's what happened. Okay, so some of us don't look TV ready behind the scenes, guys. I know you guys like to pull this off, but hey, I want to get to. We brought it up.
Sorry, let's answer that question. I don't. Oh, I mean, yeah. Did the Jets top 6 disappear against the Leafs last week? No, I mean, come on. They weren't as prevalent tonight. No, that's fair. I don't think it's a sweeping assertion that they disappear in front of a national audience. They beat the Leafs in front of a national audience 2 Saturdays ago, I think. So
okay, let's squeeze it down then to the top. Let's squeeze it down to the top 3, and then let's address the second line and where they've been in the last little while. Because I mean, we touched on this in the pregame show. We're watching that Toronto Edmonton game, and here it is, battle of the 2 of the top teams and 2 of the top players in the division, and both those players absolutely brought it. And we talked about Mark Scheifele, who's wanted to elevate his name into that conversation. He's up in the top 5. He's doing it scoring wise, but I don't necessarily think he's done it head to head against those guys. And I mean, I haven't paid enough attention specifically to like the hockey night games and the national audience, but have you guys noticed a trend of those guys going to sleep on the national stage?
I mean, not for me. I mean, obviously the Montreal game was a lot of people going to sleep in a 7-1 game, but I mean, again, have the Jets, do they struggle on Saturday nights? I don't think we can make that as a ringing endorsement because they lost to Edmonton when McDavid went super freak, as Blake Wheeler described it, and they got blown out by Montreal. I mean, to me, a 2-game sample does not suggest that the Jets can't get it done in prime time. The Jets played plenty in prime time during the 2018 playoffs, and Mark Scheifele had 14 goals, so I don't think this is an issue.
What do you think would happen if we asked a player, "Hey, what's up with Saturday nights? Saturday night not right for playing?" I honestly, I don't think it's because I want to go back to not my earlier comment, but when I said these guys aren't getting it done, yada yada yada. Like, it's a game by game basis for me. Like, I don't see this as like a trend. I don't see things as like, unless it's lasting for 4 or 5 games. It's never a trend. I don't live and die with wins and losses. You can't see one game and say this was there's going to be areas of a game that's bad. And in this case, it's I mean, if they didn't show up against Toronto, not all that surprising. They're one of the best teams in the league. But obviously there's also the issue around not getting it done any night when you're the top six. I mean, if there's no representation of the top six, then obviously it's a concern.
I wanted to get to the responses that we got from that one may be before Hammy's time. Like, I saw this one, I thought it was funny, Kenny. That may be a little bit before Hammy's time.
I don't think Hammer's listening to Poison very often.
I wanted to get to the responses by both Blake Wheeler and Paul Maurice, who, I mean, I was going to ask that, and I believe you asked the question, Kenny, where Paul had basically said he thought they played good tonight, and there was a couple bad bounces. And I mean, in that first period, I thought the interesting part before the game, Paul Maurice was asked, what he expects from the Flames after getting called out by their head coach. And he said, well, we expect the same thing. This is a team that likes to get to the front of the net. And we saw that was where they made their push in the last game. And then in the first period, that's where they got to the front of the net and they jammed pucks in. That's what they do. And I'd asked Blake Wheeler, about them getting to the front of the net. You knew they were going to go there. What could your team have done better? And he gave a very short answer and said, I thought they played fine. Essentially, you asked Paul Maurice, not the same question, but he touched on it. They thought their game was great. The story in that dressing room to me is that they feel like they got nailed by some bad bounces and some bad goaltending. Do you entirely agree?
I mean, I don't think it's a ridiculous assertion by any stretch. I don't think that this was anywhere, as close to the template as what we've been seeing from the Jets by any stretch. I don't think they were as crisp. I don't think they had as much jump. But again, I think that it was not a terrible effort. I mean, they didn't give up a ton. They gave up a lot of stuff from the outside again. But again, I think that I would put it this way. If a head coach comes out and calls a group dopey and you don't respond, it's over. Good night. Yeah. Forget about it. Your season is over if you don't respond to that. So dopey? I thought he called them dopey. He said they were dopey in the first period, and that's what cost them the hockey game.
Yeah, he said that after that. And then, I mean, the call out on Johnny Gaudreau before the game was absolutely lethal. Like, I don't know. I still don't know that relationship survives. I mean, to me, that's the beginning of Johnny Gaudreau heading out of town. When your coach is saying that to you, unless Johnny Gaudreau absolutely turns around and becomes a player that we've never seen from before in terms of dedication or how he approaches the game, which is maybe what Sutter is trying to force, I don't see how you survive that kind of conversation.
Hang on. Let's go here.
Okay.
I agree with you, Sean. I don't think that, I thought that was one of the most ridiculous comments by a head coach. I thought it was so unnecessary. I mean, the guy's on the brink of 500 games, and that's the kind of comment. I mean, he's your. I mean, players got thick skin. You assume some obviously have thinner than others, but I mean, those kind of comments, I think that whole move is ridiculous. I think that's going to be a bad call. I don't think they have the team for that coach. I don't think they have the personality for that coach, and I think it's going to implode.
Oh, well. Hang on one second here. I'm with you, Jeff, but did he really say something that was untrue? I didn't notice Johnny Gaudreau, with the exception of him getting rocked by Neil Pionk. He didn't show any energy in that game. So, I mean, I don't know that it was
I don't disagree with the
It's not like he took him to the woodshed or anything. He didn't call him terrible. He just said he didn't provide any energy.
100%. It's just, to me, it's a new age in hockey. And that old school kind of off the cuff, sarcastic, annoying kind of point, you don't have to do that. And if
Right.
you want to send a message, why don't you send a message in the office? Players don't like that. Why do you think Paul Maurice is popular? Why do you think people come in and say how great he is as a human? Because he doesn't ever throw players on the bus. Now, I like when coaches call out players, and I think coaches should, but there's a certain way to call out players. If you're not getting something from a guy and you want to have a back and forth with a reporter, you say, we need more out of this guy. I wish coaches said that. We need more out of this guy. This guy isn't living up to the expectations that he has and we have. To say, I hope he has more energy than he did in 499. Again, not trying to be a millennial here with thin skin. I just think it's one of those things that when you're managing a room and you're a new guy, and if, in that room and whatever, that's not the way you make your mark, in my opinion.
So I entirely agree with you, and I think the league has moved away from that. And I think the interesting part about this is we were wondering if there was going to be a newer version of Daryl Sutter come back, and to me, this entirely proves no, we're getting the exact same old Daryl Sutter. But you talked about that point about Paul Maurice, and and being that coach. And we had Anthony Stewart on our podcast, and he was coached by Paul Maurice and said that exact same thing. That's why this guy doesn't lose the room, because he constantly backs his players and never hangs them out to dry. But in the meantime, go back to when Anthony was playing for him. Over the course of that time up until now, which of these two coaches has multiple Stanley Cups? You gotta wonder. I mean, has soft love worked for the Calgary Flames? Is it a terrible idea to maybe think like, fine, we've had two soft love guys before this, or however many they've had. Why don't we bring in a guy who's the old school teacher or principal who's bringing out the ruler and saying, you're going to get this across the back of the knuckles in the media if you don't stand up here. Maybe it's time to shock that team into something. I agree with you. I don't think it's going to work, but the idea that he's going in that direction, it worked, and it didn't work that long ago, or it wasn't that long ago that it worked for him. Yeah, he got run out of the league at some point, but this is a guy who's got results with that approach with a number of players who remain in the league, including Trevor Lewis, who plays for the Winnipeg Jets right now.
And Jeff, I'm with you in terms of the theory, but Johnny Gaudreau not stepping up when it matters is not a new problem for the Calgary Flames. And I would be shocked if Daryl has not had that conversation with him privately before he came public with it. So I just think that the fact that people are offended by the fact that he questions someone's energy says more about where we're at today in today's game in terms of, again, I'm not saying that coaches should take people to the woodshed.
I 100%, I get that, but I don't know if it speaks to where we're at, because being a condescending a-hole is not where we're at. So if you want to hold a guy accountable, bench him. Tell him he ain't playing. Send a message to the rest of the team. You doing this, because this is when he got hired, I caught myself on a rabbit hole. It was 13 minutes of quotes, and this is right up his alley. So it's not like this comment was some surprising move. It's just, to me, and whether you're if you're frustrated at this point, you're the coach. You literally have, in hockey, you make the least impact on the ice besides how you manage your bench. So if that's how you manage your players, because yes, 2 Stanley Cups, absolutely. Those years when the Kings won the Stanley Cups, guess what? He wasn't old school in his hockey approach. He was all about possession. They're one of the best possession teams in the league. So if you're a good possession team, but you're an a-hole, so what? Everyone else is going for possession now. No one's dumping it. So the game is caught up to Daryl Sutter, and that's what's disappointing, is because you can't evolve in that aspect of your game. I think you just bought a 3-year coach where no one's going to want to play for him.
So you don't think that his approach had anything to do with that team being successful? You think it was all X's and O's?
What do you mean, team? No. I'm saying that's his approach, right? He put those systems in, right? Because he had the possession game before the possession game became vote.
Right.
So, they, those numbers, that's when analytics was kind of coming up more and more. Obviously, analytics existed to a certain degree then, but they were viewed, that was kind of like the poster child, right? The LA Kings were the possession team. They were the best possession team in the NHL, and they won the Stanley Cup. That's the best argument you could make. But people started to, as coaches evolved and changed, they became more about possession. They started copying that style. Now everybody is looking at possession. There's a whole new look at the game. So that forward thinking is no longer forward thinking. It's now modern thinking.
I wanted to address something here just because it's going on here. And NLCC, we see you out there. We see your comment. Your comment is too long to kind of bring in, but NLCC is saying that on the illegal curve post game, a lot of people were, commenting, and they didn't like the announcing coming from Sportsnet tonight. And Tracy Okranik here says, Mr. Singh's a good commentator. I just don't like he's such a homer. It's not appropriate for HNIC. I'll say this. I listened to the game tonight, and I know that Harn Ryan approaches the game with a massively professional approach. I'll say this, and this is maybe my opinion, and maybe people will torch me for it, but it's a tough gig coming in as the national broadcaster when people are used to listening to a local broadcast. Okay, your local broadcast is so tuned in, and Dennis does an absolutely phenomenal job with the Winnipeg Jets. He's one of the best in the business. He also digs into the Jets 24/7 and calls a game from the perspective of a Jets fan. That's his job. The job of When I go and I host on a Hockey Night in Canada game, whether it's the Winnipeg Jets and the Calgary Flames, or whether it's the Winnipeg Jets and the Florida Panthers, my job is to tell a 50-50 story. So I'm supposed to bring to the game the ability to tell good inside stories as much about Aaron Ekblad as I am able to about Dave Lowry. And I find personally sometimes the fact that a game is called, if you're watching a local game and it's all Jets focused, as soon as you're trying to do it 50-50, it sounds like you are ignoring the Jets because you're not hearing as much as you typically do about the Jets. That's my theory. Everyone's got the people they like and don't like, but I'll tell you this. We have the utmost respect for Harn Ryan Singh. I think if you went and listened to our podcast that we had him on Friday, you would too. He's overcome a lot of stuff and a lot of BS he's had to put up with in his career, and has come out, I think, as one of the positive influences in all of hockey. I think he does a great job, so I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one. Anyone want to go I wanted to talk about, let's get to Stanley, because everyone wants to talk about Stanley. And I think what a game he had, right? Like, I thought that his physicality was great. And I did think they made a good point on the panel about him slowly adding to his game and getting to the point now where you're now at that stage where he feels like he's got the defense locked down and he can start looking at making those plays that he did. Absolutely phenomenal goal for his first goal of his career.
Yeah, and he's just playing with more and more confidence, and it's the puck skills that he's providing and showing as well, I think, is important. Obviously, he has an ability to get his shot through, and again, I mean, a lot of people are saying, well, they're from the point, those aren't good shots. Well, shots from the point are important also because it opens up the opportunity to get to the high slot where he got today and went bar down. So I don't agree with that take at all. I think getting pucks, I mean, are they dangerous scoring chances from the left point? No, but he has a heavy shot and he's got an ability to get it through. So I think that Logan Stanley has a better offensive game than people give him credit for. He's going to be a guy that I think as he moves along, he will have that confidence to join the rush a bit more. And he'll also be confident, but he knows his first priority is to defend. He's got a long reach. He's got a big body. He's going to be able to use leverage to be physical, but this guy's just scratching the surface. He's just starting out in his career. I mean, I think that he's really starting. I mean, again, has he played sheltered minutes? Yes, but let's not all pretend that we know where Logan Stanley is going. There are very few players of his size, and all of them get compared to a Hall of Famer in Zdeno Chara. Logan Stanley's not Zdeno Chara today. He probably will never be, but let's not pretend that he's hitting his ceiling at age 22. Those guys develop, those big guys take some time to develop. So let's see how this progresses here.
I'm incredibly impressed with Logan Stanley's season. I mean, obviously, Kenny, as you mentioned, sheltered minutes. Of course he has sheltered minutes. I mean, you're not going to – he's been getting more. He had 16 minutes, which I think was 4 or 5 minutes more than his average the other night, played well. I love what this guy's doing with his confidence because – you're 22 years old. You've been called a bust for years. You're hanging out with the Moose, probably longer than you wanted to. And you come in and you make it like, let's face it, he was not on the list. Like, he needed to come in and impress in camp. I don't think he was in the top 8. And he proved himself to be a fit. And then he played, and then he got in, and then he came out of the lineup, and then he got back in the lineup. He fought a couple games ago. He scored tonight. Like, to me, those are endearing things to your teammates. And that's a massive piece of this. You want to know why Nathan Beaulieu plays as often as he plays? Because he is liked by enough guys on that team that make him part of that roster. That is where Logan Stanley is headed, in my opinion. And we're talking about, and I'm not saying he's going to make up for a potential Ekholm trade or whatever, but I am excited to see where he ends up at the end of this season and what role we see from him, come the playoffs if they can't make a move, and pick up that D-man that we've been talking about for weeks.
Let's go to the expansion question too while we have you here, Hammer. So for me, this is very interesting. I mean, I think it's the fact that we're even having a debate about who the third defenseman to be protected is a surprise. Jeff, I'm with you. Going into this season, Logan Stanley was clearly behind Lucas Spiza on the depth chart. So the combination platter of Spiza being claimed by Nashville and Tucker Poolman going out to COVID in game 2, that opened the door. But guess what? Logan Stanley walked through the door, kicked it down, and ripped the hinges right off of it.
That's a great image. That's a great image of the 6'7" guy like walking in and like handing the door over that he ripped down. Sorry,
it's right out of Rambo for sure. Pascal Vincent was on Illegal Curve this morning, and he was asked about Logan Stanley, and he said, "Everyone wants the Amazon effect. You order the product, and it shows up at your door the next day as a finished product." That's not the way that it works. That's not the way it works with anybody, let alone a 6'7" guy who's growing into his body. Is he going to be protected for sure? We don't know that. I mean, I think the Jets are invested in Logan Stanley. Will they have to consider protecting him? Of course. But I don't think that we're at the situation or the point where we can say with any certainty that the Jets will choose Stanley over DeMello, or if they'll explore other options, or if they'll explore a side deal. But we know that Logan Stanley has taken a big step in his development, and it will cause there to be some debate. I don't think we can say with any definitive nature who's going to be chosen over whom. But I would say, to Jeff's point, I think that Stanley would be the type of player that would appeal to an organization like Seattle because they see the ability and room for growth.
Kenny, let's explore the idea of that side deal that you're talking about, because we brought it up a couple times. I want to know, because again, you know my thoughts on this. The teams that made the side deal when it came to protecting players against Vegas, I mean, they all basically got torched other than the Jets, but the Jets did give up that pick that ended up being Nick Suzuki. So maybe you can view them as being torched. But the teams that tried to protect guys and sent extra out the door ended up sending better players out the door than the ones that they were trying to protect. Now, I'm confident that the Winnipeg Jets scouting staff are going to are going to know what they have and not be sending better players out the door. But the fact of the matter is Vegas got better players because they demanded really good players. The only way you're keeping that guy you want is if you give us really good guys. So we can expect that is exactly what we're going to see from Seattle. There's going to be a demand. If you want to keep Logan Stanley, if you want to keep, if it comes to protecting a guy like Andrew Kopp, if you want to keep them, you have to give us really good players, two really good players, because you got to win them over with volume over the one player. So who are the two players or more that go at the door if you're trying to protect one of the players that we're talking about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, I think a draft pick would be the preferable side. I mean, is there a side deal for... I mean, again, it all depends on what they're thinking. I mean, do they think that maybe Jansen Harkins, because he can't get in the lineup right now, is someone that would have appeal to Seattle? We did going into this year. Just a quick one to Brady. Logan Stanley is a third-year pro, even though he's a rookie NHLer. So only players who are in the first 2 years of their career would not be would be exempt from the draft. So it's 7 forwards and 3 defensemen, or the Jets could choose 8 skaters, which we'd expect them to go 7-3-1. So I mean, who are the players that they'd have to pick? Again, we don't know. Like, let's see how the last 20 plus games go. Let's see how the playoffs go. Then we'll be able. I mean, I love to look into the crystal ball, Sean, and I think it's a fair question. But I don't think that today we know if it's going to cost you Christian Vesalainen, or if it's going to cost you Jansen Harkins, or if it's going to cost you somebody else. And you're right. I mean, at some point the Jets might have to just swallow and say, well, they're going to lose. A Mason Appleton, or I mean, of course they don't want to lose Mason Appleton. He's a guy who looks like he could be a 15-plus goal scorer, but they're not going to choose Appleton over Dubois. I mean, they may have a tough decision on some players on the periphery there, but I mean, we got a pretty good idea who's going to be protected. But I'm curious for your thoughts, Jeff. What do you think about the Stanley versus DeMello protection on the back end?
See, I'm of the mind that expose someone. Like, what do you mean giving away draft picks and players? Like, you kidding me? Like, why would you protect? Like, I thought, what did they do? Protect Toby last time? Yeah. I thought that was stupid too. Like, to me, it was just like, expose these guys and maybe they take, like, here's the thing. You have people coming up. Okay, we're talking about creating room for Ville Heinola. Obviously, Dylan Sandberg's coming up eventually. I'm just saying that if it's got to be Dylan DeMello or if it's got to be Logan Stanley, personally, I like Dylan DeMello. Obviously, it was a big signing for him. We'll see what that looks like after this season. But I'm Stanley over DeMello at this point because you got to kind of go with your dogs. And this guy's, he's expensive. Stanley won't be as expensive. Who knows what happens? And again, I don't even know if it's those two guys per se. But at this point, I think you're not making deals. You're kind of making sure that you're keeping your assets, and you're losing a guy who, whatever, you lose a guy. I mean, whether that's a Mason Appleton, I think Mason Appleton, I mean, you're body bagging him there, Ken, when you say 15 plus. I think that guy's going to be better. Like I think there's potential there for a little bit. I mean, obviously I'm kidding, but I think he's a solid guy. I think you're doing what you can to maybe trade and keep him, but you also got to put in factors that you're not going to be able to keep all these guys. Everyone wants a raise, and you can't be paying your third liners if your first liners are making bank, right? I mean, that was the Vegas mix, right? How interesting was the Vegas situation last time? They got a bunch of guys. They adopted the misfit attitude, and then they all signed like $5 million deals.
Yeah.
And then a year or two later, everything's blown up, and now everyone's getting paid in Vegas. So, like, part of me...
Yes, he is, Sean. He is exempt. Second-year player.
And so part of me is thinking, why wasn't the Vegas model adopted? Like, if you could bring a bunch of guys who if you did some good scouting... This is a little off track, but if you can do some good scouting and bring in some guys at that pay level, like they all had an attitude, right? And then the Vegas team of that year is not even close to the Vegas team of now.
Right.
It's completely different. And the philosophy is completely different.
But I mean, do you expect them to catch that lightning in a bottle again? Because I mean, I said this, I'm not afraid to say it. I remember when they picked that team, I looked at it and I thought, we talked about it. I thought that it was a bust. So he does bring up a good point. They took that team, took it to the Stanley Cup final, and it's a great story. I'm expecting they're going to make a Disney movie out of it at some point one day. But it is right. They quickly went and moved on and tried to take all the assets that they got from teams trying to keep players and turn it around and try to get the Mark Stones of the world and the Paciorettys, and they did pick up the Stastnys of the world. And so, I mean, could we expect that from Seattle again, that there's just going to be a group of guys who say, like, hey, we feel dissed because we got exposed by our team and we're going to go prove something? How often is that going to work? I mean, we've had expansion teams. We went from 21 teams in the 90s to coming up to 32 teams now. We didn't have stories like that before.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, we talked about this earlier. There's not a team that is going to provide 2/3 of the top line in order to protect Alex Petrovic this time around, which is what happened to Florida. So, I don't see that being a factor. But again, Seattle's built a very smart organization. They're going to try to leverage as much as they can. But of course, everyone's going to lose a good player. I don't see the Jets losing Mason Appleton. Jeff, I'm with you. When I say 15 plus, I think that he definitely has the potential to be a 20-goal guy at some point. But I mean, hey, I've been banging the Mason Appleton drum for years here as well. So what's going to happen overall, man? There's twists and turns to come. We got to figure out what's happening in terms of the trade deadline. How does that impact things on the back end? If the Jets get a guy like Ekholm, well, of course Ekholm's going to be protected. Then they got another big decision to make. So I think it's going to be absolutely fabulous and really fun to watch. And there's going to be a lot of interest generated because, again, here's the thing. Everyone thinks that they can outsmart the person in the chair across from them, right? That's the beauty of the whole scenario. But that almost...
I was going to get my head down. I couldn't stop it. Sorry, that's literally why I got up the second time. I thought I had one. I don't.
I should say here to Oak Tree.
I'm awesome.
Oak Tree's right. So Ekholm may be taken off the market based on the fact that the Predators are now knocking on the door again. Are they going to sell all of a sudden now that they got themselves back in it? Well, no, not necessarily. But there are going to be players available. How many chips do you want to push into the middle, and what's the cost? I mean, a lot of teams are having their staring contest right now. Who's going to blink first? Who's going to push their chips in to get that early acquisition? That's what, and I'm not talking about Eric Stahl. I'm not talking about a depth addition, which could end up being a very smart addition by Marc Bergevin. But we're not talking about the pieces on the periphery, even when they have experience and Stanley Cup winning experience. Who's going out to get the best player available on the market? And what are you willing to pay when it comes to that premium?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's so up in the air because take a look at a team like Columbus, who we were just talking 2 weeks ago, Kenny, that they now were back to maybe not moving Savard, and now they're kind of falling apart again. And it's that the idea of the 4-point games. Every time you lose, someone is gaining, and it can put you in such a bad position so quickly. I wonder if that at some point doesn't start playing against the teams that are going to be wanting to move players because they don't want to lose them for nothing. Like, does it get to a situation where now teams start saying, I don't know if you're Nashville and now you're sitting there and you're 2 points out and you're thinking, okay, maybe we'll make a run for it, and you're Columbus. Maybe Columbus now says, maybe we should move Savard now because I don't want to wait for the Predators to fall apart again and then the market be affected by that guy. Maybe now is the time to move. And I'm wondering if we keep feeling like there's going to be this big price to pay for the Jets if they're trying to get a guy like Ekholm, but maybe the market actually works against the teams that are trying to move those players because of these swings and because we never know what's going to happen next week or 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, market could end up getting flooded. I know that Jamie Alexiak's a name that's come up a couple of times here, and it has come up again today. I think it's a fair point in terms of what the Jets could be looking for, but Alexiak again is more of a depth piece, I think, if you will. He could play in the top 4, yes, but I don't know. I think that the Jets are in a really interesting spot. And speaking of the expansion draft, if Harkins doesn't get his games played up, the Jets might have to be actually adding a player with term on his contract to get to the minimum in terms of players that have to be exposed. So we'll have to see with how that goes as well. And obviously the Brian Little situation is worth monitoring. I mean, the last time when I asked Kevin Cheveldayoff during the conference call, he didn't have an update.
No change, he said. Yeah.
So again, he also hasn't had a big press conference like a Johnny Boychuk, and we know that the last time we saw Brian Little, how emotional he was, Sean. And if he was ready to say he was done, I think that he won't just fade into the sunset like Steve Mason did. I think that the Jets will go out of their way to give him a proper send-off. But I think Brian Little looked very much like a person who wants to continue playing as long as he is healthy enough to do so. But I don't think that the Jets will get into a situation where Little says he can play. He might be exposed, but I don't see Seattle taking on that contract. I mean, I think that that's not going to solve the Jets' problem when it comes to forwards to protect.
Every time I hear, a fan saying, let's expose the high-level guy and let him move on, I don't ever see the team taking that on. Like, why would you take the guy who's going to eat up your salary? I think Vegas is the perfect example, except they went out and did it to themselves. They kept adding those big salaries, and then all of a sudden they're giving away guys like Stastny because they're trying to get out from underneath the money that they're spending. So why would you go and take on the big dollar guys from other teams that you don't have to? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, this is what all fans think this, Sean. They think that Seattle will take the player that would alleviate all of the problems or concerns. I mean, I've seen people with lists saying, hey, Seattle should take PK Subban to take the 10 minutes off or the 10 million off their books. Why would they want to do that?
Exactly.
I mean, Seattle's not in it to help your team. They're in it to help themselves. So I don't see them taking all these, $6 to $10 million contracts.
They're only taking those contracts if they come with a first-round pick and not
exactly
anybody else on their team. That was the situation with Vegas. Vegas wasn't plucking big contract unless they were told to with the trade.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, maybe Subban may get picked because he's a marketing guy, or a guy that the team could market. But I mean, Seattle's priority is not helping the New Jersey Devils get $10 million off their books. Forget it.
Let's go, because I think we've
have that much in their books.
We've ignored the audience questions for a while, so let's get back to one. Johnny Gherkin here. Do you think the coach tries 55, 13, 25? I was going to say, I think it's been clear at this point that they don't want to do that. And what that brings up to me is
the rest of the season, probably.
One quick one here. A lot of people have brought this up to me, and this is very easy for me to address. Neither Paul Stastny or Adam Lowry are fourth line players.
Yeah.
So I understand the premise of having your best four centers play center, but you're hurting the top 9 by putting one of those players in that spot. And Adam Lowry is the second guy over the bench on that line most nights. So you're not putting him in a position where you reduce his ice time from 16 minutes to 10 or 12. That hurts the Jets' chances more than it helps them, even though we understand the premise between spreading out the scoring. The Jets already have balanced scoring. They have 6 players at 10 goals or more and Mason Appleton at 9. They don't need to balance the scoring. They need more nights where the first and second line are both buzzing at the same time. That's what they haven't had enough of this year. It's got nothing to do with top 9.
And they also have a fourth line that is doing exactly what they want and exactly what they're asking from them right now, so they don't need to add guys down there. This is an interesting.
The role of the fourth, just to kind of cap up, the role of the fourth line for the Winnipeg Jets. This is their role. Their role is literally to take some minutes off of the top line. If they're not, and they literally have to be good enough to take enough minutes. If they're not good enough, or Maurice doesn't trust them, then that turns into more minutes for Scheifele and Wheeler. That's their reward, is to kind of pull back a little bit and give those guys a break. So the fourth line will never play a role. So if you want, other than that, if you want Adam Lowry on the fourth line, then you're going to see him play 7 minutes a night.
Right.
So he isn't
going to play 7
minutes a night.
No.
So that's the reality. Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to touch on this because this is I've heard this before. So Jessica Dracula says, But then, to our point about, other teams aren't just going to take the big money guys off other teams that are problematic. But then don't you just expose your big dollar guys because they won't take them? And I've heard the suggestion of players like Josh Morrissey being exposed. I've heard the suggestion of Blake Wheeler being exposed, which he's got. Is he the only one on the Jets with the no move clause?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, so you can't do that anyways. But let's pretend.
And nor would they. We could stop that right there too.
The problem, Sean, is the Jets. I feel like this is almost a waste of time because the Jets are not a team with contracts that are so high that, can you name a guy who wouldn't get taken? Morrissey would get taken. If
of course, yes.
So if Josh Morrissey is our best example of a high salary to expose, is there even a conversation? There's other teams that will expose guys who are $11, $12 million, hoping you won't take them, or 10 or whatever. You're not exposing a guy who's $6 million, whatever.
I'm just wanting to make the point that, so let's say that take all that away, and the fact that the guys that the Jets would expose would probably get taken. Let's just say there was a reason that the Winnipeg Jets wanted out from a contract with Josh Morrissey or Blake Wheeler. Then you have to have the conversation where, as a general manager, you go to that player and say, hey, you guys who have C's and A's on your jerseys, and we've said all this, hey, how about we expose you? I mean, they already did that with Matthew Perreault.
I was just going to say that wasn't an easy conversation. That wasn't an easy conversation with Matthew Perreault, who is well overpaid by the Winnipeg Jets.
And who's going to be gone after this year?
Who's going to be gone after this year? Imagine having that conversation, and especially with, say, Blake Wheeler didn't have one, and he probably didn't have a movement clause, and he probably would be the most likely to put up there because I don't think, actually Seattle probably would take him. Who knows? But could you imagine that conversation with Blake Wheeler?
I mean, it would be. It's the kind of thing that would shatter your organization.
He would not be a Jet, regardless if he went to Seattle. If the Winnipeg Jets asked him to expose himself to that.
Hey, let's take this question here because I mean, it comes into the idea of fans paying tickets and other sports that are a lot more open with this. Do you think fans deserve an updated assessment of Brian Little's progress?
We don't know what his progress is. He hasn't played a game since last November. I mean,
they're not talking about us telling the fans. They're saying, does the team owe it to be reporting to us, allowing us to report on where he's at?
Well, they don't know where he's at. I mean, he's trying to get healthy. I mean, Sidney Crosby, when he took basically barely played for a year and change, he didn't know when he was going to come back. This is a concussion we're dealing with here. I don't think the Jets are having a big secret.
Even bigger. If you're a fan of Brian Little, I think you go to bed tonight thinking he will never play hockey again, and if he does, awesome. Because that's where we're at.
Found money.
Well,
Like, Brian Little needs to get healthy. I mean, that's his number one goal in life.
Right around the corner. Like, this guy has a major rehab ahead of him. It's like, like he hasn't been on the ice. So it's like I still think he's at a situation where he's still getting like diagnostic results, right? We're not talking about okay, I'm feeling a bit better, I'm about to skate in a few weeks. It's like I still don't have the clearance to like live a normal life, essentially. I'm not sorry. I shouldn't be saying things like that. I'm not trying to say that he's having a challenge here, but like that's where he's at. He's not at okay, you have 6 to 8 weeks and this is your cycle. He is literally at an indefinite timeline. And until he gets really good news, I don't know if an update even matters. I mean,
yeah, and the other part too is that Brian Little would like to play again if he can, but I don't think he's in any position to make that assessment at this point. I don't think there's anybody hiding anything. Little's not hiding anything, and neither are the Jets. They just want him to get healthy, and then they'll take it from there. And that goes for Little as well. And I think that, Sean, you asked him the question about if retirement had entered his mind. I've never seen Brian Little more emotional, and he made it very clear that he won't be retiring. He will be forced to stop playing. It's not that he will be choosing to not play again.
Right. Man, that gutted me, that interview. I mean, that guy, he's always been great to talk to and respectful. I mean, I wonder what the pressure is that is involved with, his contract being there. It means that Kevin Cheveldayoff always has to wrestle with the possibility of him coming back, and it decreases the flexibility that he has to address his roster should he never come back. And I think you guys make salient points. If the news pointed more towards him coming back, I think we would have heard that by now. But I think the situation is he's not coming back unless he gets the word from the doctors that he's hoping for. And it's been, how long has it been now? This has been, what are we at? We had almost two years.
November 2nd, I think, is when the shot to the ear happened.
So, I don't know. I feel for, sorry, not 2 years. It's like a year and a half. It's
almost 2 seasons.
But do you think a player like him feels pressure to make a decision and maybe retire and then step back towards the game? You don't think there's any pressure on him? No? Okay.
Still collecting a paycheck. Where's the pressure? The pressure is to get healthy. I honestly think he's not thinking hockey career. I think he's thinking get healthy and then think about hockey career. I think there's bigger things at play here than whether or not he's going to be lining up at center for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I'm going to make this the last one, guys. Do you think there's a wink-wink handshake deals in place with Lowry and Poolman? It's an interesting idea because in order for them to kind of protect all the guys, and you've talked about this, Ken, to protect all the guys that they want to keep around, if they're going to bring back a guy like Stastny and bring back a guy like Lowry, the expectation is they're not going to sign them before the end of the season to do that because it's just going to make them expose more players and better players in the process. So do you think that there's potential to have conversations and have those guys think the team is a lot better off if you allow yourself to go to unrestricted free agency but come right back?
Yeah, if you're the Jets, you would want that, but I don't think that that's the case at all. I think if the Jets have the opportunity to lock, especially Adam Lowry up, I think they go and do so. And if they do so, they'll protect him. They're not going to sign him to a contract that they feel is reasonable only to allow Seattle to sign him. But the problem here is this, Sean. A player like Lowry was becoming a UFA for the first time. In a lot of situations, unless he is given a deal that he can't say no to, he has earned the right to see what's out there. The problem for Adam Lowry is that he's entering a UFA situation in a flat cap year, but there's plenty of teams that are going to be able to offer Adam Lowry probably more money than the Winnipeg Jets can. I don't think there's any incentive for him to agree to a handshake deal before listening to what the market is offering. I don't think that for 1 second. So in terms of Poolman, I mean, same for him. I mean, I don't see that either. I mean, what's the incentive for him? Yes, the Jets were the team that drafted him and gave him a chance, but if you're Tucker Poolman, maybe Seattle makes sense for Tucker Poolman. I mean, yes, he's valued by the Jets for sure, but Tucker Poolman's not putting up points to cash in on a big dollar contract. It's going to be about fit for him. But I don't see, I mean, again, I'm sure teams would love to have handshake deals, but that's just not the way it works.
Sorry, I want to say one thing. I'm just going to throw it out there. I think Lowry's gone. There's no way he's coming back. Like, it's not that Adam Lowry for sure loves Winnipeg, loves Jets, loves what it's done for him. And I'm not saying, this is my opinion. That guy is not going to play second fiddle or third fiddle or whatever it is. I get he's the second over the boards. I get his role, but he is the seventh or eighth best forward on the Winnipeg Jets. Mm-hmm. And that's his reality. So he could go somewhere. Someone is going to see an Adam Lowry, a big power forward, and they're going to sign him. He's going to get paid. And
so we've said
this. Seattle too. Seattle's a great example. Seattle could make Adam Lowry the captain of their team and pay him more than the Jets could because they don't have any salary cap issues, even in a flat cap world.
Is he gone?
I don't think it's a certainty that he's gone, but I think there's going to be teams that will be able to offer more money.
There's absolutely why would Adam Lowry take a haircut?
And I don't think he will.
A bunch of scorers. The guy. This is my Adam Lowry moment, okay? I have a ton of respect for Adam Lowry. I have a ton of respect for him as a guy. We all know he's a great guy. He's a very insightful person. He's got time for us, yada, yada. I'm going to rip us back to Buffalo a couple of years. Kenny, you and I were there. Absolutely
drilled. Time with Jeff
line 8, boom. Like a tree, falls to the ground, is concussed in that Buffalo game, right?
Jake McCabe rocked him.
And that was the turning point. You saw it turn, right? You saw the game turn. The only guy who did anything that game, who threw his body around and let Buffalo know they just knocked out their superstar, was Adam Lowry. Adam Lowry is a gamer. He takes himself extremely serious. He takes the game extremely serious. He's not looking for a haircut in Winnipeg to sit behind two solid lines. He's gone.
So we played this game before. Jeff, Ken, and I have played it a bunch of times. But you go, if you just go through the North Division, is there a team? I guess the Canadians are probably locked up, and I don't know about Edmonton's situation. But don't you think he's the perfect fit with the Edmonton Oilers? But he's also the perfect fit with the Vancouver Canucks, and he's the perfect fit with the Calgary Flames, who have competition issues within their room. I mean, doesn't he basically satisfy the needs of almost every team in Canada out there? Other than, I guess,
that's what I'm saying. And I'm not arguing. I see a couple comments here. I'm not arguing that Adam Lowry, like when I say second fiddle to the top six, I'm not saying he's going to be in some team's top six. And Dominic, let's be clear, he's second over the boards, as we said. You could argue he's the second line because of the matchups and the ice time that he gets. I'm saying that because of the top-end forwards that exist on the Jets and the money that will go to them, he finds himself in a position where he's not able to, get that extra payday. I think the Jets can give him his value, maybe, whereas another team would covet him greater, would not have these 6 great players in their top 6, and would have the money to move around for. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not saying that Adam Lowry's chasing dollars and stuff, but this is a guy who has worked hard to this point, and there's every single player in the NHL wants their payday. They want their contract that is a reflective of their work in the game. And again, the Jets, do they want a guy like Adam Lowry? Absolutely. I just don't think they have the bank account to give him what he can get somewhere else.
Two points I want to make here. Imagine the matchup problems that it suddenly creates for the Winnipeg Jets if they don't have Adam Lowry to be the guy who goes and handles, the players like Leon Draisaitl, who he shuts down and does an amazing job with. And then the other part of that is how much leverage does Pierre-Luc Dubois have in contract negotiations with the Winnipeg Jets and landing a massive contract if Adam Lowry is gone, and now he becomes the guy that you need to have there to make sure you've got that big center down the middle to shut other teams down.
Well, I mean, Dubois is going to have leverage regardless, but it certainly
But
bolsters his
amazing
case.
leverage. Yeah.
Well, I mean, sure. It again depends what he wants. I think if the one thing that we talked about since Pierre-Luc Dubois was acquired, he's looking for a place to plant the flag. So if he's happy with how things are going in Winnipeg, I don't think that there's going to be an issue. And the problem for guys like Dubois and others is that the normal money and the projection of the cap going from 81.5 to as high as 88 or 90, that's not happening, and it's not happening anytime soon. We talked about it, same with Laine. Laine's dreams of becoming a $10 million player in his next deal, I'm sorry, I don't see it for right now.
Yeah.
If that's going to be the case, it's going to be after he takes a bridge and until the finances of the NHL get better. So, I mean, that's why there's a big unknown when it comes to this year's class of free agents. But Lowry's the kind of guy that is going to have appeal to a lot of teams. So his services are going to be in demand. And we all know this is a supply and demand industry.
Kenny, what do you think you can offer Lowry? Like, what do you think? What's a reason? Not what his value, not necessarily what his ceiling is. What competitive offer could the Jets offer, in your opinion, that would have him consider staying?
Sure. I mean, for me, obviously, if he's at 2.9 and change, he's going to want to be, I would say it's got to start probably with a 4. I don't think a 3 gets it done, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't think 3.5 gets it done. I mean, that would require a pay cut. I mean,
not for his toolkit, yeah.
What did Tanev get? 3.5 wouldn't even be close. What is Tanev 3.6? I can't remember it. Is that what he got?
I think it's closer.
Isn't it?
It's just over 3.
3.3?
Yeah, just under 3.5 or whatever. For how many years?
It was a 6-year deal for 21, I think, somewhere in there, I think. So it was over 3, but under 3.5. But still, those deals were also signed with the expectation the cap was going up. But I do think that if Jay Beagle and Roussel are getting $4 million, Adam Lowry's got to be looking at $4 million. I mean, if someone says no, well, then he'll readjust. But I think it has to start with a 4, Jeff, for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I say high 4s. I mean, I think that this is a guy who solves a lot of problems. I think what he does for you in your room. I think what he does for you, especially if you're a team I always think of the Edmonton Oilers. Here's a team that can send out Connor McDavid's line and dominate you, and Leon Draisaitl's line and dominate you. But then after that, they're not a hard team to play against. If you can add an element of being a very hard team to play against with the defense they have, I know they need to solve their goaltending issues. But in my mind, Adam Lowry and a goaltender makes the Edmonton Oilers a very legit and tough Stanley Cup contender for a number of years to come.
Sorry, one quick thing. Tanev is 3.5, people. I understand why some of you think it's more. I looked it up on Cap Friendly. It is 3.5, which is what I pretty much had said, I think. So that's
what I'm saying. If he's making that to me, that puts Lowry out of the 3s.
Remember so Andrew Kopp, after his 4-goal game, and it was your question, Kenny, or about the checking aspect and him turning that around and saying yada yada. But then he mentions that when we're on the road, teams are actively not playing us against their top line where they can't match. So so assuming that certainly is the case, because that's the Jets' game plan, right? That's what they want. That's what they would prefer. So teams are actively doing that. So you're telling me there aren't coaches out there that go, that's the centerman of the shutdown line that we don't want to play our best guys against.
So for sure.
You just need one of those guys to be like, I'll pay that guy. You need 2 of them to get really paid.
He's the one who creates the matchup problems. And as Kopp said in that same interview, when opposition coaches are saying, get our top guys away from the Lowry line, well, that means the Lowry line's playing against the other team's 3rd line, and then they can take those guys to the cleaners. I mean, that's just the way that it goes.
All right.
I'll tell you this. The Jets tried to get Lowry on a 5-year deal back in the day for just over $1 million a season.
That would have been a good deal for the Jets.
That would have been a massive term versus value.
Yeah. All right. Tracy Okranik is tapping out because we've outlasted her, and we're going on to 113, almost $1.15. So we're going to shut her down here. We want to thank Jeff Hammy.
Jeff's just getting ready to go here.
I thought we were just getting warmed up.
Same here.
I get. Yeah, no, I get it.
Keep going. You want to
keep going a little longer? Yeah,
not too fun.
Can I take a quick bathroom break, or is that is that taboo?
Okay.
I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready to go on all questions if we still got people talking. If there's 4 people in the chat and we're 3 of them, then yeah, maybe we shut it down.
I'll say this: I was getting emails, or not emails, but Twitter this morning talking about how fresh Ken looks at this time in the morning and how tired I look. So maybe I'm just trying to save my reputation here. I don't know.
Sorry, one thing I should say, sorry. I mean, one of the people, when they were talking about Tanev, they were saying 4.5. So, I mean, I understand where you're coming from there in terms of players that are, good leaders and bringing character. Sure. I mean, Chris Tanev's a good example, but I think, again, defense, maybe you get, you're paying a premium because of what Tanev did on that top pairing with Quinn Hughes last year in Vancouver.
There was a question earlier on, I didn't get it in there, but it was asking if you expect that Ville Heinola is going to get sent straight back down before playing an NHL game.
This is easy to assess here, Sean. I mean, Ville Heinola was the insurance policy on this road trip. When the Jets come home from this trip on Tuesday morning, I assume that there's a good chance that Heinola would go back to the Manitoba Moose. They're just starting out a 17-game homestand, so I think there was a possibility that Heinola could have got into the lineup if there was an injury. But I think that if once the Jets get back home, I think they'll want him to continue playing for the Moose and getting big minutes.
Hammy, it's been a big topic of conversation on this show time and time again. People get, and you'll have heard it before, people get really upset that Heinola hasn't been given more of an opportunity to get some ice time this year. Are you bothered by it?
No, you know what? No, I'm not, because I get it. I mean, obviously, I get the frustration. I get why people, how do I say this? I feel like there's a massive excitement over what people haven't done yet. And I think you need to take into consideration a guy like Ville Heinola, who, yes, you watch him once, he looks composed, he looks ready to play. There is you can't just throw everything at a kid. I feel like if these people sat across a table from this guy and looked at him, you'd be like, okay, I kind of get it, right? But they look at a name, look at a guy who has a composed thing, and it's like, oh, this guy should be playing, how big idiots. There is someone, you need to understand a roster is put together not based on individuals. It's based on the sum of all parts. And if you have a defense that has a handful of younger guys or new guys, there's a cost to that. And Ville Heinola has looked really good at times when sheltered, when given the opportunity to play with good players. Now, is he capable? Absolutely. But there's a longer game here and a longer play here that he will eventually figure it out. He's going to be a good player for the Jets. And, can you I think he still has potential to have an impact this season. I don't think anyone's ruled him out. I mean, he's going to get time with the Moose. Who knows what happens in the playoffs? Now, I'm not trying to start anything by saying he gets pumped up, but they have a larger roster. And with the way the schedule works, I'm just saying if he continues to get confidence, the other part is, and I know, Kenny, you're about to get in this probably, you can't play a guy 10 minutes or, 12 minutes in a game. He needs to play massive minutes. These guys have very, very fragile egos. And not in the sense of I should be playing more, yada, yada, yada. If you're not only playing that much in a game and you're used to playing way more, you don't feel like part of the game. It gets on your psyche. So you go to the Moose, you play unbelievable minutes, you play every single situation, and you sit there and you stew because you think you should be playing in the NHL level. You just don't know it yet that you're going to be eventually, and this is the best path for you. So I'm not upset at it by any means, because he's going to be a Jet and he's going to be awesome.
He's got things to learn, Jeff. I mean, we were at the game together, that Moose game on that Friday afternoon. I mean, there were some flashes of brilliance, but this is a player who still has things to learn. And just back to the Amazon effect. Everyone wants that with Heinola. And the recency bias. You see Heinola at the World Juniors dominating against players at his own level of competition and his age, and you're like, well, and then you see him play one game against Ottawa, where he made a lot of smart puck decisions, and yes, Josh Morrissey played one of his better games of the year with Ville Heinola. Well, yeah, but that's not how it works over a 56-game schedule for a guy who's, just turned 20 years old.
That's the other part, the schedule, the routine, and the other part is when Ville Heinola gets into the lineup, the point will be to never remove him.
Yep.
So you're not putting him in for games and then removing him and then taking him to the Moose for some cookie. When you put him in, he is in the lineup.
I'll say
For
this
good.
point.
For
I'll
good.
say this point. At one time, the Winnipeg Jets, when they did not have the depth that they have now, they would prepare players in the AHL, and then they would bring them up to play in the role that they expected them to play. And so Kyle Connor doesn't come up and work his way necessarily up from the fourth line. You want to bring him in, and you want him to be a trigger man. So you let him season as a trigger man in the AHL, dominate, and then bring him up to the next level. Now, I don't think that situation exists anymore. We don't see Ville Heinola, Christian Vesalainen getting those kind of opportunities anymore. I think Harkins is another guy now, and I think Rosvik was a victim of that as well, not able to kind of play where you would want a player like that to play because of the depth. But the Jets don't have that depth on defense, and so Ville Heinola is a guy that they're going to want up, like you said, playing good minutes. So you want to make sure that he's learned everything he needs to learn to, like you'd said, when he makes the transition, he's there and he stays there. You want him up and playing the role that you expect him to play for this team for years to come. And that's how you do it.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
I bet you if Dustin Byfuglien is still on this team, Ville Heinola is in the lineup.
And why is that? Where does he fit?
As his partner.
As his partner.
Because he has the big guy playing beside him. I mean, there would be some risk there, obviously.
In other ways. The guy can't get punched in the face by NHL veterans playing beside a Josh Morrissey. You know what I mean? Or playing, you know what I mean? Like, Dustin Byfuglien plays on this team, Ville Heinola is in the lineup.
Yeah, I totally disagree with that. I mean, you've got Josh Morrissey.
Dustin Byfuglien made Ben Sherratt. Dustin Byfuglien made Josh Morrissey, and Dustin Byfuglien will make Ville Heinola.
Yeah, I think they keep Josh Morrissey there because I think hey, the one thing that you need out of the guy who plays. To your point, you just brought up the players who play with him. The one thing you need with Byfuglien is a guy who's going to be able to stay and take care of his end when Byfuglien's off freelancing. That's exactly what those guys do. That's not Ville Heinola. Ville Heinola is the guy you want in the zone creating stuff, using his intelligence. I mean, I don't see that fit at all. I disagree with you guys entirely.
But you don't see the fit, but you understand the fit. The fit isn't by necessarily simply style. And I don't think that, like, I'm telling you that he is the guy, that's the guy that Paul Maurice leaned on to allow people a comfort level into the NHL.
And see, I disagree.
Sorry.
I think that Paul Maurice did a good job of finding players who did a good job of moving the puck and taking care of their own end, who didn't necessarily want to jump up. I mean, I think Dustin Byfuglien and bringing in Josh Morrissey beside him is one of the reasons Josh Morrissey didn't necessarily become the offensive defenseman everyone expected of him. And it's why he broke in and did the whole, the mythology behind him is he was a good offensive player. He didn't do things very good defensively. And then he went to the Rock and became, over the summer, this defensive player that they'd all been looking for. And now he gets those opportunities because that's what you need to fit with Dustin Byfuglien. I think you leave Ville Heinola entirely exposed if you play him with Dustin Byfuglien.
There's certainly risk involved, Sean, for sure.
Sean, you have a right to be wrong, man. No one's saying that, like, you don't have.
Jeff, I have the power to remove you from the show with one click.
That's true.
So
I would say more about you than me.
Sorry, one thing here. B. Henderson, you are not following along with what we're saying here. I think that Ville Heinola is going to be excellent, and the Jets are protecting Heinola right now. They're not going to play a 19 or 20-year-old with a 22-year-old rookie. I mean, Stanley Heinola down the road as a pairing, maybe, but not right now. They're helping Ville. This is meant to help Ville Heinola long term. Playing 20 minutes plus a game in the American League will allow Ville Heinola to make an impact when he arrives at the NHL level. That's the whole point of what's happening right now. So again, I just think you're misunderstanding us. So we all three of us think that Heinola, he's the Jets' best prospect. It's not going to take long before he becomes the Jets' best defenseman, but he's not necessarily the Jets' best defenseman today. So he needs to go through some of these things. I understand completely. He's played in Liga, he's played pro hockey, but even the Anaheim Ducks, Jamie Drysdale was in San Diego until recently. because he needed the extra time. And this is a guy who's bigger and stronger. We talk a little bit about some nights where that second line's not going. Well, if there's some nights where it's hard for someone who's been in the league as long as Nikolai Ehlers, and he's been great for the Jets, but the taxing nature of playing 17 games in 30 days, that's incredibly difficult for someone at Heinola's size. Even just maintaining your weight over the course of a season and your strength is incredibly difficult. So again, there is a plan involved here. And we understand that Ville Heinola's puck-moving skills, vision, offensive game is NHL ready this instance. But there's an element that's happening here in order to round out the rest of his game so that when he does arrive, he is an impact player right away. And I want to leave this one more point to wrap this up. The year that the Boston Bruins won the Stanley Cup, Tyler Seguin did not play in the first round. This is a guy who's a second overall pick in the draft. So Heinola is not, it doesn't mean he's down in the minors for the rest of the year. I'm with you, Jeff. There is still an opportunity depending on how things shake out. He could still make an impact before this year is over. There's no doubt about that.
I wanted to answer this question quickly. Al Broderick asked, what would you do if you didn't have this format? Al, I would sleep. I would go to sleep right now. These guys won't let me do it. So, I'm going to make this the last one. Nathan Beaulieu, when he's healthy, has Stanley played Nathan Beaulieu out of the lineup?
Depends what Blake Wheeler says. And that I see. Look, Blake Wheeler's a huge fan of his. There's a lot of say from the leadership group. There's going to be a talk. That's not even like a shot. Like, I don't think he belongs there, but I mean, they had Nathan Beaulieu playing top line. Now, I'm not, again, if it was my choice, I'm saying no, but I think there's more at play there than simply, I mean, Nate Thompson was injured forever. He got his spot right back.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and now I think we're at the stage where it doesn't happen. But if you would have told me that 2 weeks ago or when that injury happened, I don't think I would have. I think that he would have been coming straight back in. What do you think, Ken?
I think that I think we'll see what happens here. I think that every game that Logan Stanley plays, he's taking another step forward. I think the fact that he showed he was willing to throw down the other day in a fight, I mean, we know that that's part of the element. And I think the fact that he was willing to engage physically, get into scraps, play a physical game is certainly helping his cause, and he's adding more of an element each and every day. But again, I also think I totally understand we're in a instant gratification and we need all the answers. Let's see how the next couple of weeks goes. I mean, if Logan Stanley continues to progress the way that he has, it's going to be awfully tough for Paul Maurice to take him out of the lineup. Those are facts. But to say that there's no chance that Beaulieu plays again, I mean, I also think that that's just not looking at it objectively. We need to see how things develop here. And also we got to see how he recovers and how he responds. I mean, I don't think you're not putting Beaulieu in at 80% because you didn't think Stanley could handle the job. He's handling the job, very well. So, I mean, it's still pretty wide open, but again, every day that Logan Stanley plays, he's building confidence and showing that he's the kind of guy that can do the job. So,
and he's doing what Nathan Beaulieu does.
Sure, with more offensive game, right? With more offense.
Point. That's my point. We keep talking about Logan Stanley continuing to develop, and that's great. But hasn't he shown at this stage that he can bring the toughness angle that Nathan Beaulieu does? He can hit. We've seen his hits, and that now we've seen. We are constantly talking about his ability to get pucks through to the net, creating offense. We saw him score his first goal tonight. I mean, aren't we at the stage already that we see that he brings more to the lineup than Nathan Beaulieu does?
Well, Sean, he's bringing more right today, yes. But again, we don't know how this is going to develop. That's the only thing. I mean, again, he's doing his best to take the job, but you're not just given the job and then the job's yours forever. I mean, Logan Stanley's in a position where he's played 20-plus games. He needs to earn it every single day. I mean, he's earning himself a much wider berth by how he's playing. But, I mean, it's the same thing as last year. I think some of us have made the mistake of thinking that because Jansen Harkins took the job last year, that he's a full-time NHLer. Yes, but he's not a full-time NHL regular. So this could also happen to Logan Stanley, but I'm not saying it necessarily will because of the way that he's playing. He's showing that he deserves it. But again, you always got to leave some of the doors open. I mean, we don't know. Sometimes there's injuries that come up. Things change quickly at the NHL level, but I think that Logan Stanley is going to continue to make it awfully difficult for anyone to take him out of the lineup because of the ability that he's playing with and the potential that he has to do more as he becomes more and more comfortable.
The only way Stanley comes out for Nathan Beaulieu is if he gets injured, in my opinion. And as far as, at the end of the – I mean, you're going to have playoffs, right? So you might manage Logan Stanley's minutes by bringing in a guy like Nathan Beaulieu. And Nathan Beaulieu, let's be clear here, like no one's – I'm not dumping on the guy. He would be a team player. Like, he's not the kind of guy who wouldn't, but you also look at what Maurice did with him before he got injured, and you wonder, well, where exactly does he fit in this lineup? Logan Stanley ain't getting up and down the defensive pairings, whereas Nathan Beaulieu, before he got hurt, was playing everything from the top pairing to the bottom pairing, and at some points was logging more ice time than anybody else after 2 periods. So where exactly Paul Maurice believes he fits is what's going to happen. But at this point in time, I think you're going to get a massive uproar if Logan Stanley continues to play the way he's playing, and then he gets taken out of the lineup. I think you need to be worried about the future here, and Nathan Beaulieu is not the future Logan Stanley.
Yeah, answer this one, Ken.
Sure. I mean, it's a fair question, but I can also answer this very simply. Paul Maurice has him currently playing on the top pairing. So how many guys go from the top pairing to the press box?
Right.
That's just not how coaches operate. So I understand where you'd be coming from, Rolly, but it just seems, and that's why I say Jeff.
Paul Maurice is pure trust. It's
right. That's why he's in the lineup. And
Tucker Pullman isn't flashy. He isn't a guy who is fighting whatever. Paul Maurice knows exactly what he gets with Tucker Pullman every night.
Right.
And that's why he's in the lineup.
And his bump is from the top pairing to the third pairing. It's not from the top pairing to the press box. That's just not how Paul Maurice operates. So I think it's interesting to watch. And I mean, they love having these problems. I mean, that's a great way to put it. When the Jets' biggest problem is they can't find enough ice time for Jansen Harkins, and they're not sure which defenseman might have to come out at some point or when they can find room for their top prospect, I would say that's put them in a pretty important position. And that's the other part. The Jets did not play a great hockey game today. They're 2 points out of first place in the North. If I had told anybody in the comment board that the Jets would be 2 points out of first place in the North Division, I can't imagine anyone would say, oh, you know what, that's just not good enough for me. And that's something that gets lost.
I tried to take the out before. I'm going to take the out that Al Braddock is giving us here. He's good night from Long Beach, California, which is 2 hours behind us.
That has been cutting the blood to your brain for a while, judging on your date. So you should have probably gone to bed an hour ago, and I could have run this.
Hey, okay. Well, hey, I'm glad you showed up, Hammy. It's always good hearing you talk trash, whether it's online or to my face. I love it. Either way, it's great. And I want to thank everybody who tuned in. I mean, still 113 people at 1:43 in the morning. That is absolutely something. Philly Danger. Good night from Thailand.
Say hi to my Uncle Jim. He's on Blue Canyon.
That is awesome. I don't think Isaiah Bruce that I'm making the headwear thing a full-time thing. But
let's just spend the next 20 minutes thanking everybody for all the awesome comments, right?
We could. There's all these people.
Is that how you guys usually wrap these things up with a bunch of thank yous and a bow, or how does it work?
Well, we appreciate our audience. You don't? Are you trashing our audience?
No,
then we're gonna have real problems.
I'm saying you're getting all these positive comments, and I'm wondering just if I'm like 99% of it or 100. I'm not 100% sure here.
Listen, you keep talking trash to my
First
audience.
Of all, I'm the
you are going to see how
on that point, I'm the biggest Kenny and Renny show fan, and it's an honor to be on here tonight. It was so much fun. I listen to post games the next morning if I miss it. These are the guys that do my homework. So if I sound any bit smart, it's because I'm listening to these guys and adding my own intellect to it, I guess.
Oh, you are being far
You're
too
bringing
kind.
a lot, exactly. But we appreciate the support. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming on, Hammy. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And we just want to remind you, if you're watching this on YouTube right now and you haven't clicked subscribe, make sure you do so. If you're watching on anything else, Facebook or Twitter, same thing. Go to YouTube. It's the best way to follow what we do. We're going to be here doing this after the post games for the rest of the season. Catch us on Instagram for our pre-games and catch our podcast we run every Friday. They are I'm proud of those things, Kenny. I think we've done some really good stuff there, and we're going to continue trying to bring everyone out there the best we can. And yeah, good night. I don't have anything else to say, and I'm not feeling guilty because you guys are trying to keep me on. Too bad.
Monday
good night, everybody. Have a good one. See you everyone.